Even with nothing left, she kept giving, and someone was watching. A poor black girl stood in the rain, trembling as she held a stranger's hand in a dark alley. "Please wake up, sir," she whispered, unaware the man she was trying to save was a billionaire, and that this one moment would change her life forever. Because sometimes, the ones the world overlooks are the ones who end up changing everything. Rain fell in thin, steady lines, turning the narrow alley behind Miller's Diner into a river of reflections. Neon lights from the restaurant sign flickered red and blue against wet brick walls, buzzing softly like they were tired of staying alive. The smell of grease and damp cardboard hung heavy in the air, mixing with the distant rumble of passing buses and the occasional honk from the street out front. Nia Brooks pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders as she stepped out the back door, balancing a small trash bag in one hand. Her shift had run late again. It always did. The manager said she was lucky to even have the job, lucky to be trusted near the register, lucky to stand in a place where people with money came to eat. She didn't feel lucky. She exhaled slowly, watching her breath disappear into the cold night. Her shoes were already soaked through, the cheap soles no match for Chicago rain. She moved carefully down the cracked pavement, avoiding puddles out of habit more than hope. That's when she saw him. At first, he looked like just another shape in the dark, someone sleeping it off, maybe drunk, maybe homeless. It wouldn't have been the first time. People passed through this alley all the time, and most of them didn't leave anything behind except trash and silence. But something felt off. Nia stopped. The man wasn't moving. A flicker of lightning in the distance briefly lit the alley, and in that split second, she saw the details. The cut of his coat, the sharp lines of a tailored suit, the polished leather shoes now smeared with mud. This wasn't someone who belonged here. Her grip on the trash bag loosened. It slipped from her fingers and landed with a dull thud. "Hello?" she called out, her voice small against the sound of rain. No answer. Her heart began to beat faster. Every instinct told her to walk away. This wasn't her business. People got into trouble for less in neighborhoods like this. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong person. But her feet didn't move. She stepped closer. The man lay on his side, one arm stretched awkwardly beneath him.
Can you hear me?
A phone lay shattered just inches from his hand, the screen spiderwebbed and dark. Water pooled around it, slowly creeping closer to his fingers. "Sir?" She tried again, softer now. Still nothing. Nia knelt down, ignoring the cold water soaking through her jeans.
Are you all right?
Her hands trembled as she reached out,
Stay with me, okay?
hesitating just above his shoulder before finally making contact. "Hey, can you hear me?" She gave him a gentle shake. Nothing. Her breath caught in her throat as she turned him slightly onto his back. The overhead light from the diner flickered again, casting just enough glow for her to see the stains spreading across his white dress shirt. Blood. Not bright, not fresh, but enough. "Oh my God," her voice cracked. Please wake up, sir." She shook him again, a little harder this time. Rainwater ran down her face, mixing with the sudden heat in her eyes. She didn't even notice she was crying. "Please don't do this. Not here. Not like this." His face was pale, his lips slightly parted, breath so faint she had to lean closer just to feel it. But it was there, weak, barely holding on. Relief hit her for a second. Then fear rushed in twice as fast. She looked around the alley. Empty. No footsteps. No voices. Just the hum of the city pretending not to notice. Her gaze dropped to his wrist. A watch caught the dim light. Sleek, heavy, the kind she had only seen in display cases behind glass, with prices she couldn't even imagine saying out loud. This man wasn't just out of place. He was important. And somehow, he had ended up here, alone, bleeding, and forgotten. Nia swallowed hard. Her eyes shifted to the broken phone. Dead. Useless. Then to his coat pocket. Slightly open. Inside, she could see the edge of a leather wallet. For a brief second, just one, her mind betrayed her. Rent was overdue. Her mom's medication was running out. Her little brother hadn't had a full meal in 2 days. Her fingers twitched. No one would know. No one ever came back here. The rain fell harder, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. Nia closed her eyes. Then she shook her head. No, she whispered to herself. Her hand moved away from his pocket. Instead, she pulled off her own thin jacket and carefully draped it over his chest, shielding him from the rain. It wasn't much. It barely covered him. But it was all she had. She reached into her back pocket and pulled out her phone, her fingers fumbling as she dialed 911. What's your emergency? I found someone, Nia said, her voice shaking. He's not waking up. He's hurt. I think he's bleeding. Please, you have to send someone. Stay on the line. Are you with him right now? Yes, I'm right here. I'm not leaving him. Her eyes never left his face. Sir, please wake up, she whispered again, softer this time, like a prayer. In the distance, faint but growing louder, the sound of sirens began to rise. Red and blue lights flickered against the wet walls of the alley, creeping closer with every passing second. Nia tightened her grip on his hand. You're gonna be okay, she said, even though she didn't know if it was true. The city roared on just beyond the alley, unaware, or maybe just unwilling to care. As the sirens closed in, one thought echoed in her mind, louder than everything else. Who are you? And why were you left here to die? The red and blue lights washed over the alley walls, growing brighter, louder, closer. Nia stayed where she was, her hand still wrapped around the man's cold fingers, her jacket soaking through as rain continued to fall. She didn't move when the ambulance doors slammed open. She didn't step back when the paramedics rushed in, their boots splashing through puddles as they knelt beside him. Step back, miss, one of them said gently, but firmly. Nia blinked, as if waking from a dream. Her hand slipped away from his. I called, she said, her voice barely steady. He wasn't breathing right. I think he hit his head. There was blood. We've got him, the paramedic replied, already checking the man's pulse, shining a small light into his eyes. Another one moved quickly, cutting open the front of his shirt with a pair of scissors. Nia turned her head instinctively, but not before she saw the deep bruise spreading across his ribs. Possible internal injury, someone muttered. Get the stretcher. The alley filled with movement, urgency, purpose, everything Nia didn't feel. She stepped back slowly, her hands hovering uselessly at her sides. Rainwater dripped from her hair, ran down her face, soaked into her clothes. Nobody looked at her anymore. Not really. She was already disappearing. Ma'am, did you see what happened? A police officer asked, appearing beside her. His voice wasn't unkind, but it wasn't warm either. Just routine. Detached. Nia shook her head. No, sir. I just found him like that. The officer studied her for a moment, his eyes flicking down to her worn shoes, her damp uniform, the cheap diner logo stitched over her chest. You work around here? Yes, sir. Miller's Diner. I was taking out the trash. He nodded, making a note on a small pad. You saw anyone else? Anyone running, maybe? No. Another pause. The stretcher rolled past them, the man's body strapped down, oxygen mask pressed over his face. For a brief second, His hand shifted slightly, just enough for Naya to notice. Her breath caught. "He moved," she said quickly. "He's alive, right?" "They're doing everything they can," the officer replied, not meeting her eyes. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and just like that, he was gone. The sirens rose again, echoing off the buildings as the vehicle pulled away, disappearing into the night. The flashing lights faded with it, leaving the alley darker than before. Quieter. Empty. Naya stood there for a long moment, staring at the space where he had been. Then the officer cleared his throat. "We may need you to come down to the station later, just to give a statement." Her stomach tightened. "Am I in trouble?" He hesitated. Just a second too long. "Not if everything checks out," he said. "Everything checks out." The words didn't sit right. Naya nodded slowly. "Okay." He handed her a small card. "Call this number if you remember anything." She took it with shaking fingers. By the time she turned back toward the diner, the alley looked like it always did. Trash bags, wet pavement, flickering lights, like nothing had happened. Inside, the warmth hit her first. Then the noise, plates clattering, silverware scraping, voices rising and falling over half-finished conversations. The smell of fried food filled the air, thick and familiar. Normal. Too normal. "You're back?" Her manager, Rick, called from behind the counter, his eyes narrowing. "What took so long?" Nia opened her mouth, but the words didn't come out right away. I found someone outside. He was hurt. I had to call an ambulance." Rick cut her off with a sharp wave of his hand. "You left your shift, in the middle of a rush." "I didn't leave, I just—" "You think I care what happened out there?" he snapped. "We had tables waiting, orders backing up. You can't just disappear whenever you feel like playing hero." The word hero stung more than it should have. "I wasn't playing anything," Nia said quietly. "He needed help," Rick scoffed. "Yeah? And who's helping you pay your bills when I start docking your hours?" A couple of customers glanced over, then quickly looked away. Nia lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. He studied her for a moment, then shook his head. "Just get back to work." She nodded and moved past him, her body still cold, her mind still somewhere in that alley. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Orders, refills, plates, smiles that didn't reach her eyes. At one point, a woman at table 6 snapped her fingers at Naya without even looking up. "Miss, we've been waiting 10 minutes." "I'm sorry," Nia said again, even though she wasn't sure what she was apologizing for anymore. Later, near closing time, she stepped outside again. Not to check the alley this time, just to breathe. The rain had stopped. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement, stretching into long, shimmering lines. A bus roared past at the end of the street, its headlights cutting through the darkness. She leaned against the wall, arms wrapped around herself. He was out there somewhere now, in a hospital bed, surrounded by people who knew his name, who cared whether he lived or died, people who would never know hers. Naya let out a slow breath. She had done the right thing. She knew that. But standing there alone with her shoes still soaked and her stomach still empty, it didn't feel like anything had changed. Not really. Inside, someone laughed loudly, a burst of warmth and life that didn't belong to her. Nia closed her eyes for a moment. Tomorrow, she would wake up early, take the bus across town, stop by the pharmacy to check on her mom's prescription, maybe pick up an extra shift if Rick let her. Life would go on, like it always did. She pushed herself off the wall and turned to head back inside. But before she reached the door, she hesitated. Her gaze drifted back toward the alley, toward the place where everything had shifted, even if no one else seemed to notice. A strange feeling settled in her chest. Quiet. Uncertain. Like something had started, but hadn't finished yet. And somewhere, in a hospital across the city, a man she didn't know was still fighting to wake up. The question lingered in her mind as she stepped back into the light. Had she just saved a life, or stepped into a story that was only beginning? Nia didn't sleep much that night. The sound of the rain lingered in her ears long after it had stopped, like it had soaked deeper than her clothes, into her thoughts, into her bones. She lay on the narrow couch in their small apartment, staring at the ceiling where faint cracks spread like veins across peeling paint. The city outside never really quieted. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. A car passed. Voices drifted up from the street below. Life moving on. Beside her, her little brother Marcus slept curled under a thin blanket, his breathing soft and steady. On the other side of the room, her mother coughed in her sleep. Low, persistent, the kind of cough that never fully left anymore. Nia turned her head slightly, watching them both. That was her world. Small, fragile, always one step away from falling apart. She closed her eyes, but the image came back instantly. The man in the alley, pale, still, the weight of his hand in hers. "Please wake up, sir," her own voice echoed in her mind, softer now, almost like it belonged to someone else. She sat up slowly, pressing her palms against her eyes. Morning came too soon. Gray light filtered through the thin curtains, painting everything in dull shadows. Nia slipped on her shoes quietly, grabbing her worn jacket from the chair. The fabric was still damp from the night before. She hesitated for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the small card the officer had given her. A number. A name she didn't recognize. She stared at it, then folded it carefully and tucked it back away. "Maybe later," she whispered. There were more immediate problems. The bus ride across South Side was crowded as usual. People pressed shoulder to shoulder, eyes tired, conversations low and clipped. Nia stood near the back, gripping the metal pole as the bus jerked forward. Outside, the city looked different in daylight. Less mysterious, more unforgiving. Closed storefronts with peeling signs, graffiti layered over old brick. People moving fast, heads down, like stopping for even a second might cost them something. She got off 2 stops early, not because she had time to spare, but because she needed to stop by the pharmacy. The bell above the door chimed softly as she stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and paper. A fluorescent light flickered overhead. "Morning," the pharmacist said without looking up. "Morning," Nia replied, approaching the counter. "I came to check on my mom's prescription." "Carmen Brooks?" The man tapped at his computer, eyes scanning the screen. "Still pending," he said after a moment. Nia's stomach tightened. It was supposed to be ready yesterday. Insurance hasn't cleared it yet. She swallowed. "Is there any way I can just get a few days' worth? I'll pay cash, whatever I have." Now he looked up. "Miss, I understand, but we can't dispense medication without approval." Nia nodded slowly, even though her chest felt like it was caving in. "Okay. Thank you." She turned to leave, her fingers curling into her palm. Outside, the cold air hit her harder this time. She stood there for a moment, staring at the passing traffic, trying to steady her breathing. Then she reached into her pocket. Her fingers brushed against something soft. She pulled it out. Her jacket. Not the one she was wearing, the one she had used last night. Her heart skipped. She had forgotten. In the rush, in the chaos. She had left it with him. A small, almost bitter laugh escaped her lips. Figures. She didn't have much. but somehow she always managed to lose a little more. Her hand drifted back to her pocket. The memory surfaced again. The wallet, the thick leather, the glimpse of cash. For a second, the world seemed to slow around her. What if she hadn't closed it? What if she had just taken it? Rent would be covered. Her mom's medicine paid. Marcus wouldn't have to pretend he wasn't hungry. No one would have known. No one would have cared. Nia shut her eyes tight. No, she whispered, because she would have known. That was the problem. That was always the problem. She started walking again, faster now, like she was trying to outrun the thought. By the time she reached the diner, her breath had steadied, but the weight in her chest hadn't gone anywhere. Rick was already there, leaning against the counter with a coffee in hand. "You're late," he said without looking at her. "I'm 5 minutes early," Nia replied quietly. He checked his watch, then shrugged. "Feels late." She didn't argue, didn't have the energy. The morning crowd trickled in slowly. Construction workers, office staff grabbing coffee, a few regulars who barely glanced at hers as she refilled cups and wiped down tables. Invisible. Just like always. Around noon, the lunch rush hit. Orders piled up. Voices overlapped. The kitchen filled with heat and noise. "Table 4 needs their check. Where's the extra fries? Nia, move!" She moved. She always moved. But her mind kept drifting. Back to the alley. Back to the man. Was he alive? Had he woken up? Did he even remember her? "Hey!" The sharp voice snapped her back. A man in a gray suit sat at one of the corner tables, his expression tight with irritation. "I've been waiting 10 minutes, he said, tapping his fork against the plate. "Is this how you treat paying customers?" "I'm sorry," Nia said quickly. "I'll be right back with your order." He gave her a look, one she knew too well, the kind that didn't just see her. It judged her, measured her, dismissed her. She turned away before it could settle in too deep. By the time her shift ended, her feet ached, her head throbbed, and the world felt just a little heavier than it had that morning. She stepped outside again. The sky had cleared, but the air still held that damp chill from the night before. For a moment, she just stood there. Then, without really thinking about it, she turned toward the alley. It looked different in daylight. Smaller, less dangerous, almost ordinary. The spot where she had found him was empty now. No sign of what had happened. No trace of the blood. No broken phone. Just wet pavement and scattered trash, like it had all been erased. Nia stepped closer, her eyes scanning the ground. Nothing. She let out a slow breath. "Guess that's that," she murmured. But as she turned to leave, something caught her eye. Near the edge of the wall, half hidden behind a damp cardboard box, a small, metallic glint. She stepped toward it, her heart beginning to beat faster. Slowly, she crouched down and reached out. Her fingers closed around it. Cold, heavy, a watch, the same one she had seen on his wrist. Nia stared at it, her breath catching. He had lost it. Or maybe it had been taken off. She turned it over in her hand, watching how the light caught along its edges. Even she could tell. It was expensive. More than expensive. Life-changing. Her grip tightened. The alley was empty. No one was watching. The city moved on just beyond the corner. Nia swallowed hard, and for the second time in less than 24 hours, she was faced with the same choice. The watch sat cold and heavy in Nia's palm, its polished surface catching the pale afternoon light. Even in the dull alley, it looked out of place. Too clean, too precise, too expensive for a place like this. She glanced around. No footsteps. No voices. Just the low hum of traffic at the end of the block and the distant rattle of a train passing overhead. No one was watching. Her fingers curled slightly around it. She didn't know much about watches, but she knew enough to understand what this one meant. This wasn't something you found at a discount store. This was something people locked away, something people protected, something people noticed when it was shown. Her mind moved fast now, faster than it had the night before. Her mom's prescription, the rent, the empty fridge, Marcus asking if there would be dinner tonight, and pretending not to be disappointed when she said she'd figure something out. All of it pressed down on her at once. The watch felt heavier, just sell it. The thought slipped in quietly, almost gently. No one would connect it to her. It wasn't like she took it from him. She found it. Out here. Alone. Left behind. Her breath slowed. For a moment she let herself imagine it. Walking into a pawn shop. Sliding the watch across the counter. Walking out with enough money to breathe again. Just for a little while. Just enough to get through this week. Nia closed her eyes. Then she exhaled sharply and shook her head. No, she said out loud this time. Because it wasn't hers. Because it never would be. Because if she crossed that line, even once, she didn't know who she'd be on the other side. Her hand tightened once more. Then she slipped the watch into her pocket. Not to keep it. To return it. Somehow. She stood up slowly, brushing damp dirt from her jeans. Hospital, she murmured. It was the only place that made sense. The hospital was brighter than she expected. Too bright. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, reflecting off polished floors that smelled faintly of disinfectant and something sterile, something distant from real life. People moved quickly through the halls, doctors, nurses, visitors, all carrying their own urgency. Nia felt out of place the second she stepped inside. Her clothes still smelled like fryer oil and rain. Her shoes squeaked slightly against the clean floor. She walked up to the front desk, her hand resting lightly over the pocket where the watch sat. "Excuse me," she said. The receptionist looked up briefly, then back down at her computer. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for someone," Nia said. "He was brought in last night, from an alley behind Miller's Diner." The receptionist's fingers paused on the keyboard. "What's the name?" Nia hesitated. I don't know what..." That earned her a look. "We can't give out information without a name." "I found him," Nia added quickly. "He was hurt. I called the ambulance." Another pause. The woman studied her now, really studied her. Then she leaned back slightly. "Wait here." Nia nodded, her heartbeat picking up. The minutes stretched. People passed by, glancing at her without really seeing her. A man in a suit walked by, talking loudly into his phone. A woman rushed past with flowers clutched to her chest. Life. Moving forward. And then, "Miss?" Nia turned. A tall man in a dark suit stood a few steps away, his expression unreadable. Behind him, another man, broader, sharper, watched silently. "Yes?" Nia said. "You said you found someone last night?" the first man asked. She nodded. "Yes, sir. Come with me." Something in his tone made it less of a request. Nia followed. They moved down a quiet hallway, away from the noise of the waiting area. The air felt colder here, more controlled. Finally, they stopped outside a set of double doors. The man turned to her. "Before we go any further," he said, I need you to understand that the person you brought in is not just anyone. Nia felt her stomach tighten. I figured that, she said softly. The man studied her for a moment longer. Then he pushed the door open. Inside, the room was larger than she expected. Machines beeped steadily. A curtain was drawn halfway across, but she could see the outline of a bed and the figure lying in it. And beside the bed, a woman stood. Tall, composed, dressed in a tailored coat that probably cost more than everything Nia owned combined. Her posture was straight, her presence commanding. She turned as they entered. Her eyes landed on Nia, sharp, assessing. Who is this? The woman asked. This is the girl who found him, the man replied. The woman's gaze didn't soften. In fact, it hardened. Really? She said. Nia swallowed. Yes, ma'am. The woman stepped closer. Up close, her features were flawless, controlled, the kind of face that didn't show weakness easily. I'm Clara Whitmore, she said. The name meant nothing to Nia, but the way the room seemed to shift around it, the way the men beside her straightened just slightly, it meant something. A lot. Clara's eyes flicked briefly to Nia's clothes, her shoes, her hands, then back to her face. And you expect me to believe, Clara continued, her voice calm but cold, that you just happened to find my brother lying in an alley and decided to help him? Nia blinked. Your brother? Clara didn't answer that. Instead, she stepped aside, just enough for Nia to see the man in the bed clearly for the first time. His face was pale under the hospital lights. Bruises shadowed his jaw. A bandage wrapped around his side. Machines surrounded him, steady and quiet. But it was him, no doubt. The man from the alley. Alive. Nia felt something in her chest loosen. He's okay, she whispered. Clara's eyes narrowed slightly. He's alive, she corrected, thanks to a number of very skilled doctors. The words hung in the air, carefully chosen. Nia looked down for a moment, then back up. I didn't do much, she said. I just called for help. Clara studied her again. Longer this time, as if trying to see through her. And you expect nothing in return? Clara asked. The question landed harder than it should have. Nia shook her head slowly. No, ma'am. Silence filled the room. The machines continued their steady rhythm. Finally, Clara spoke again. Security footage shows you were alone with him for several minutes, she said, before anyone arrived. Nia's heart skipped. I stayed with him, she said. He wasn't breathing right. I didn't want to leave him. Clara took another step closer. And you didn't take anything? She asked. The words were quiet, but sharp. Nia froze. Her hand instinctively moved toward her pocket, where the watch rested. The weight of it suddenly felt impossible to ignore. No, she said. The lie sat heavy in her throat, because she hadn't taken it. But she had it, and Clara was watching her now, like she already knew. The silence stretched longer than Nia could handle. The soft beeping of the machines beside the hospital bed seemed louder now, echoing in her ears. Her fingers curled slightly against her side, resisting the urge to touch her pocket. To confirm the watch was still there, to somehow make it disappear. Clara Whitmore didn't blink. People like her didn't need to raise their voices. They didn't need to rush. Power, real power, moved slowly, carefully. Nothing? Clara repeated, her tone smooth, almost polite. Nia swallowed. I didn't take anything, she said again, her voice quieter this time. It wasn't a complete lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. Clara tilted her head slightly, studying her like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Behind her, one of the suited men shifted his weight. The subtle movement didn't escape Nia's notice. It made the room feel smaller, colder. "You understand," Clara said, "that my brother doesn't just end up in an alley, not without reason." Nia nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am." "And yet," Clara continued, "you were there, alone with him." The words settled heavily between them. "I stayed because he needed help," Nia said, forcing herself to hold Clara's gaze. "That's all." Another pause. Clara's eyes drifted down again, taking in Nia's damp shoes, her worn sleeves, the faint grease stains that hadn't fully washed out. Then back to her face. "People don't usually do things for no reason," Clara said softly. Nia felt something tighten in her chest. "My mom's always said," she replied carefully, "that if you see someone hurting, you don't wait for a reason." Clara's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Brief, almost invisible. Before it could settle, the door behind them opened again. A nurse stepped in. "Ms. Whitmore, the doctor needs a moment." Clara raised a hand slightly. "In a minute." The nurse nodded and stepped back out, closing the door quietly. Clara turned back to Nia. "For now," she said, "you can go." The words came without warmth, without thanks. Just dismissal. Nia hesitated. Her eyes flicked once more to the man in the bed. Daniel, she realized now. That was his name. Daniel Whitmore. He looked the same as he had in the alley. Still, quiet. Suspended somewhere between here and somewhere else. "You're sure he's going to be okay?" Nia asked. Clara didn't answer right away. "He's strong," she said finally. "He'll wake up." Not if, when. It sounded like certainty. Nia nodded. "Okay." She turned to leave, but just as she reached the door, "Wait." Her heart skipped. She turned back slowly. Clara stepped closer again, her heels making soft, deliberate sounds against the polished floor. "If you remember anything else," Clara said, "anything at all, you will tell us." It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am," Nia said. Clara held her gaze for another second, then nodded once. "Good." Nia stepped out into the hallway. The door closed behind her with a soft click. And just like that, the air felt different, lighter, but not safer. She exhaled slowly, leaning back against the wall for a moment. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them together, trying to steady them. What just happened? She had walked into that room thinking she was doing the right thing, returning something that didn't belong to her, checking on someone she had helped. Instead, she had walked out feeling like a suspect, like she had done something wrong. The hallway buzzed quietly around her. Nurses moved quickly. A cart rattled past. Somewhere down the corridor, a monitor beeped steadily. Life going on, unaffected. Nia pushed herself off the wall and started toward the exit. Each step felt heavier than the last. Halfway down the hall, a voice called out behind her. "Miss, hold on." She turned. The man in the dark suit, the one who had brought her in, was walking toward her now, his pace slower this time. "Yes?" Nia asked. He stopped a few feet away, lowering his voice. "Off the record," he said, "you should probably stay available for the next few days." Her stomach tightened. "Why?" He hesitated, then leaned in slightly. "Because if this turns out to be what we think it is, you may be the only one who saw him before everything went wrong." The words hit her harder than anything Clara had said. "What do you mean, what you think it is?" she asked. He glanced briefly down the hall, then back at her. "We don't think it was an accident." Nia's breath caught. "He didn't just fall?" she whispered. The man shook his head slightly. "We're still figuring it out. But you didn't hear that from me." Nia nodded slowly, her mind racing. Not an accident. Someone had done this. To him. The image flashed in her mind again. His still body in the alley, the broken phone, the bruising along his ribs. Her chest tightened. "Okay," she said quietly. The man gave her a small nod, then stepped back. "Just be careful. Careful." The word followed her all the way out of the hospital. Outside, the air felt colder now. The sky had darkened again, clouds rolling back in like the city wasn't done with the rain just yet. Nia stood on the steps for a moment, staring out at the street. Cars passed. People moved. No one looked at her. No one knew what she had just stepped into. She slipped her hand into her pocket. Her fingers brushed against the watch. Still there. Still heavy. Still not hers. Her grip tightened. She had come here to return it. To do the right thing. But now everything felt different. Because if what that man said was true, if this wasn't an accident, then this watch might be more than just something valuable. It might be part of something unconscious. Nia pulled her hand back slowly. Her heart began to pound again, just like it had in the alley. Only this time, the danger wasn't lying unconscious at her feet. It was out there. Somewhere. And somehow, she was already part of it. The wind picked up as Nia stepped off the hospital steps, tugging at her jacket like it was trying to pull her back inside. The sky had turned a heavy gray again, clouds hanging low over the city like something waiting to break. She walked fast, not toward home, not toward the diner, just away. Her thoughts moved faster than her feet. Not an accident. The words echoed in her head over and over again. That quiet warning from the man in the hallway didn't feel like something she could ignore. It felt like something that would follow her whether she wanted it to or not. Her hand brushed her pocket again. The watch. Still there. Still ticking. She stopped at a crosswalk, staring down at the pavement as cars rushed past. The sound of tires slicing through wet asphalt filled the air. "What am I supposed to do with this?" she whispered. No answer. The light changed. She crossed. By the time she reached her building, the first drops of rain had started again. The stairwell smelled like old paint and damp wood. Someone had left a broken chair on the second landing. A flickering bulb buzzed overhead. Same as always. Nothing changed. Nia unlocked the door quietly. Inside, the apartment was dim, lit only by the soft glow of a lamp near the couch. Marcus sat at the small table, pencil in hand, staring down at a sheet of homework. "You're late," he said without looking up. "Had to stop somewhere," Nia replied, kicking off her shoes. He glanced up this time. "You get the medicine?" The question landed heavier than anything Clara had said earlier. Nia hesitated, then shook her head. "Not yet." Marcus nodded slowly, like he already expected that answer. "It's okay," he said. "Mom said she's fine." From the couch, their mother shifted slightly, her voice faint but steady. "I am fine," Carmen Brooks said. "Don't you worry about me." Nia forced a small smile as she walked over. "How you feeling?" she asked. "Like I'm not getting any younger," Carmen replied with a weak chuckle. Nia sat beside her, brushing a loose strand of hair from her mother's face. "You rest," she said. "I'll figure everything out." Carmen looked at her for a long moment. "You always say that," she murmured. "Because I always do," Nia replied. But this time, she wasn't sure. The night passed slower than usual. Rain tapped against the windows. Pipes rattled somewhere in the walls. The city breathed in low, restless sounds. Nia sat at the small kitchen table, the watch placed in front of her. She had taken it out the moment she got home. She couldn't keep it hidden anymore, not from herself. It looked even more out of place here than it had in the alley. Too perfect, too clean, too valuable for a space where the paint chipped off the cabinets and the fridge hummed like it might give out any day. Marcus wandered in after a while, rubbing his eyes. "What's that?" he asked, pointing. Nia covered it instinctively. "Nothing." He tilted his head. "That doesn't look like nothing." She hesitated, then slowly moved her hand away. Marcus leaned closer, his eyes widening. "Whoa, that's nice," he said. "Where'd you get it?" Nia exhaled. "I found it," she said, "last night. With that guy I told you about." Marcus frowned slightly. "The one in the alley?" She nodded. "You gonna give it back?" he asked. "Yeah," Nia said. "I tried today." "What happened?" She paused. "His family thinks I had something to do with it." Marcus blinked. "What? That's stupid." Nia let out a quiet laugh. "Yeah, it is, but it didn't feel funny." Marcus looked at the watch again. "You could sell it," he said carefully. The words hung in the air. Nia didn't respond right away. "I mean, we could really use it," he added. "Just until things get better." Nia stared at the watch. Her mind replayed everything again. The pharmacy, the rent, her mom's cough, the look on Clara's face. "You sound just like me yesterday," she said softly. Marcus shrugged. "I'm just saying." She reached out and picked up the watch, turning it over in her hands. "I know," she said, "and for a second, I thought about it too." Marcus waited. "But it's not ours," she continued. "And if I keep it, I become the kind of person they already think I am." Marcus didn't argue. He just nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. Nia gave him a small smile. "Go get some sleep." He turned and shuffled back toward his room. Nia stayed where she was, alone again. The watch ticked softly in her hand. Time moving forward, whether she was ready or not. The next morning came with bad news. Rick didn't even let her get past the door. "We need to talk," he said, arms crossed. Nia stopped. "What's wrong?" "You left your shift early yesterday," he said. "I told you. I had to." "I don't care why," he snapped. "You left. During lunch rush." "I came back," she insisted. "Too late." Nia felt her stomach drop. "Rick, I need this job." He looked at her for a long moment, then shook his head. "I can't run a business like this," he said. "I need people I can count on." "I am someone you can count on," Nia said, her voice tightening. "Not yesterday you weren't." The words hit harder than anything else. "Please," she said, "just give me one more chance." Rick looked past her toward the empty tables, then back at her. "I'm cutting your hours," he said. "Starting today." Nia blinked. That's basically firing me," she said. "It's what I can afford," he replied. Silence. Then he stepped aside. "You can pick up your things." Nia walked out of the diner 15 minutes later with a small plastic bag in her hand. Her apron, a spare shirt. That was it. The sky had cleared again, but it didn't feel like relief. It felt like exposure, like there was nothing left between her and everything going wrong. She walked without direction, her steps slow now. The watch pressed against her pocket again, heavier than before. She stopped at a bus stop and sat down. Cars passed. People came and went. No one looked at her. No one asked if she was okay. No one knew that in less than 24 hours, she had saved a man's life, lost her job, and somehow ended up in the middle of something she didn't understand. Nia leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. Her hands covered her face. For the first time since the alley, she felt it. Everything. The weight. The fear. The doubt. "Doing the right thing," she whispered. Her voice cracked. Changed nothing. The words lingered in the air, soft and fragile. But somewhere, deep down, a quiet part of her still refused to believe that was true. She lifted her head slowly, her eyes distant. Because if what that man said was real, if Daniel Whitmore had been attacked, then this wasn't over. Not even close. And whether she wanted it or not, something was coming. Something bigger than her. And it was getting closer. Across the city, behind layers of glass and steel, silence filled a private hospital room where time seemed to move differently. Machines blinked softly. Monitors traced quiet rhythms in green lines that rose and fell like distant hills. The steady beep was the only sound that confirmed life still held on. Daniel Whitmore lay still beneath crisp white sheets, his face pale against the dimmed lights. The bruising along his jaw had darkened overnight, shadows forming where strength once lived. His breathing was shallow but steady, assisted by a thin tube that curved gently along his cheek. To anyone else, he looked like a man lost in sleep. But somewhere beneath the surface, something was shifting. Fragments. That was all it was. Broken pieces of memory drifting through darkness. A voice. Soft. Shaking. "Please wake up, sir." The words echoed again. Closer this time. Not just a sound, but a feeling. Warm hands against cold skin. The faint smell of rain. The pressure of someone refusing to let go. Daniel's brow twitched slightly. The monitor beside him responded with a small, sudden spike. In the chair by the window, Clara Whitmore looked up instantly. She hadn't slept. Not really. Her posture was still perfect, her coat still pressed, her hair still in place. But the faint lines around her eyes told a different story. One she would never admit out loud. She stood quickly, moving to the side of the bed. "Daniel?" she said, her voice low but urgent. No response, but the monitor didn't lie. Something had changed. She pressed the call button. Within seconds, a nurse entered, followed by a doctor adjusting his glasses as he stepped closer to the bed. "What's happening?" Clara asked. "Just a moment," the doctor replied, already checking the readings. Daniel's fingers moved. Barely. But enough. Clara's breath caught. "Daniel," she said again, softer this time. His eyelids fluttered. The room seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, he opened his eyes. The light hit him first. Bright, harsh, unforgiving. He squinted, his vision struggling to focus. Shapes blurred together, voices layered on top of each other. "You're in the hospital. Try not to move, you've been unconscious." The words didn't settle. They drifted past him like noise, because something else was louder, something closer. That voice. "Please wake up, sir." His lips parted slightly. Where? He murmured, his voice rough, barely there. Clara leaned in. You're safe, she said quickly. You're at St. Vincent's. You were injured, but you're going to be fine. Daniel blinked slowly. His gaze shifted, not fully aware, not fully present, but searching. Girl, he whispered. Clara frowned. What? His brow furrowed as if trying to pull something from deep inside his mind. The girl, he said again, a little stronger this time. Where is she? The doctor glanced at Clara. Clara's expression tightened. What girl? She asked carefully. Daniel's eyes moved again, unfocused but insistent. Rain. Allie, he muttered. She said. He swallowed, his throat dry. Please wake up. The words faded at the end, but the meaning didn't. Clara straightened slightly. Her mind moved fast now. The girl, the one from yesterday, the one standing in that room with wet clothes and steady eyes, the one she didn't trust. She was there, Daniel whispered. She didn't leave. Clara crossed her arms slowly. She's gone, she said. Daniel's gaze shifted toward her. For the first time, something sharper flickered behind his eyes. Not confusion, recognition. She helped me, he said. The room went quiet. Clara held his gaze. Daniel, she replied carefully, you were found in a dangerous situation. We don't know who was involved. His expression didn't change. She didn't hurt me, he said. Clara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned slightly toward the doctor. How long until he's fully stable? She asked. A few hours, maybe less, the doctor replied. But he needs rest. Clara nodded. Then she looked back at Daniel. You need to focus on recovering, she said. Everything else can wait. But Daniel didn't look convinced. His eyes drifted again, unfocused, but not empty. Searching. That voice still echoed somewhere in his mind. Not loud, not demanding. Just there. Like something real in a world that suddenly didn't feel certain anymore. Find her, he said quietly. Clara's jaw tightened. We will look into it, she replied. It wasn't a promise, but it wasn't a refusal either. Daniel's eyes closed again, exhaustion pulling him back under. The machines continued their steady rhythm, but the room had changed. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was waiting. Across the city, Nia sat at the bus stop, unaware of the shift that had just taken place. Her fingers traced the edge of the watch in her pocket. Her world still felt small, still fragile, still on the edge of breaking. But something invisible had moved, something she couldn't see yet, something that had already begun to pull her back into the story she thought she could walk away from. Because somewhere in a hospital room filled with quiet machines and controlled voices, a man who had everything was asking for the one person no one thought mattered. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel Whitmore wasn't thinking about money, or power, or control. He was thinking about a girl in the rain, who refused to let him disappear. And now he wasn't going to forget her. The hospital room settled back into quiet, but it wasn't the same quiet as before. Clara stood near the window, her arms crossed tightly as she stared out at the city below. Traffic moved in steady lines, headlights cutting through the gray afternoon like nothing unusual had happened. Like her brother hadn't nearly died in an alley behind a diner. Like control hadn't slipped. Behind her, Daniel slept again, but not as deeply. His breathing had changed. Lighter, closer to the surface, aware, and asking questions. Clara didn't like questions she didn't already have answers to. She turned slowly, her eyes moving toward the man standing near the door, the same one who had brought Naya into the room earlier. "Find her," Clara said. The man nodded once. "We're already working on it." "Not working on it," Clara replied sharply. "Find her." A brief pause. "Yes, ma'am. And I want everything," Clara added. "Where she lives, where she works, who she talks to. I want to know why she was there and what she saw." The man hesitated just slightly. "She called emergency services," he said. "Stayed with him until help arrived. That lines up with what we've seen so far." Clara's gaze hardened. "That doesn't mean it's the whole story." Silence followed. Then, "What about the footage?" she asked. The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a tablet, tapping the screen before turning it toward her. "We pulled security from the street cameras nearby," he said. "Limited angles, but enough to piece together a timeline." Clara took the tablet. The screen showed grainy black and white footage. A timestamp blinked in the corner. A figure appeared first, Daniel. He stumbled slightly as he walked down the sidewalk, his posture tense like he was already in trouble before he reached the alley. Then, another shadow, someone else, just barely visible. Clara leaned closer. "Can you enhance that?" she asked. "We're trying," the man replied. "But the angle's bad." The footage continued. Daniel disappeared into the alley. The second figure followed. Then, nothing. Minutes passed on screen. Empty sidewalk. Rain starting to fall. And then Nia. She appeared suddenly, rushing into the frame from the opposite direction. Her movements were quick, uncertain at first, then urgent. Clara watched closely. Nia knelt, stayed, didn't run, didn't leave. The footage showed her pulling out her phone, making the call, waiting, alone. Clara's fingers tightened slightly around the tablet. "Play it again," she said. The man did. Same result, same sequence, same conclusion. "She didn't touch anything?" Clara asked. "Not that we can see," he replied. Clara didn't answer. She handed the tablet back slowly. "So she arrives after," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "Not before." "Yes, ma'am." "And the second figure?" "Gone before she got there." Clara turned toward the bed. Daniel lay still, unaware of the conversation unfolding just feet away from him. But his words lingered. "She helped me." Clara exhaled slowly. "Then who did this?" she murmured. The man hesitated. "There's more," he said. Clara looked at him sharply. "What?" He tapped the tablet again, pulling up another clip. "This is from a different camera, around the corner." The video played. A car. Black. Parked briefly near the alley entrance, engine running. Then, the same shadowy figure from before slipped into the passenger seat. The car pulled away. Clara's eyes narrowed. "License plate?" "Partial," the man said. "We're running it now." Clara nodded slowly. "Keep digging." "Yes, ma'am." He stepped back. But Clara didn't move. Her mind was already connecting pieces. Daniel attacked. A second person involved. A getaway vehicle. This wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. This was planned. And the girl had walked into it after the fact. Unplanned, uninvited, unpredictable. Clara turned again toward the bed. Her expression shifted, just slightly. Not softer, but less certain. "She stayed," she said quietly. The man near the door didn't respond, because there was nothing to add. Clara looked down at her hands, then back at the door. "Find her," she repeated. But this time, there was something different in her voice. Not just suspicion, something else. Something closer to doubt. Across town, Nia stood outside a small corner store, counting the few bills in her hand. Not enough. Not even close. The neon sign above the door flickered weakly, casting uneven light across the cracked sidewalk. A man sat on an overturned crate nearby, head down, coat pulled tight around him. Nia stepped inside. The store smelled like old paper and cheap coffee. Shelves lined the walls, filled with items she didn't have the luxury of choosing between. She moved slowly, picking up only what she needed. A small loaf of bread, a can of soup, generic brand. She set them on the counter. "That all?" the cashier asked without looking up. "Yes, sir." He rang it up. Nia handed over the money. Coins clinked softly as he gave her change. She picked up the bag and stepped back outside. The cold hit her again. Same as before. Same as always. She walked a few steps, then stopped. Across the street, two men stood near a black car, talking quietly, watching. Her chest tightened. It was nothing. Probably nothing. Just people. Just a car. But something about it didn't feel right. The way they stood. The way one of them glanced up, just briefly, and then looked away too quickly. Nia's grip on the bag tightened. Her heart began to beat faster, not because she knew something was wrong, but because something felt wrong. She turned and started walking. Faster now. The sound of her footsteps echoed lightly against the pavement. Behind her, a car door opened, then closed. Nia didn't look back. She didn't need to. Because for the first time since the alley, the danger didn't feel distant anymore. It felt close. Too close. And somewhere deep inside, she realized something she hadn't wanted to admit before. This wasn't just about the man she had saved. This wasn't just about doing the right thing. This was something bigger, something darker. And now it was starting to follow her. Nia didn't run. Not at first. She kept her pace steady, her steps controlled, like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't noticed the car. Like she hadn't felt that quiet shift in the air. The kind that made your instincts wake up before your mind caught up. Her fingers tightened around the small paper bag as she crossed the street. Don't look back. That was the first rule. If you look back, you confirm it. If you confirm it, it becomes real. So she kept walking. The wind picked up again, pushing loose trash along the curb. A newspaper skidded across the sidewalk, slapping against a lamppost before falling still. Normal. Everything looked normal. But it didn't feel that way anymore. At the corner, she turned left, then right, then cut through a narrow side street she knew well, one she used to save a few minutes on her walk home. Her heart beat faster now, not from running, from knowing. Something was wrong. A car engine hummed somewhere behind her. Too slow, too steady. She didn't need to turn around to know it was still there. Now she walked faster. Her shoes hit the pavement harder, her breath shorter, sharper. "Keep going," she whispered under her breath. Ahead, a small group of people stood outside a laundromat, talking loudly, laughing about something she couldn't hear. Good. People. She moved toward them, blended, didn't stop, just passed through. The sound of conversation wrapped around her like a thin layer of protection. When she reached the next block, she finally allowed herself to glance back. The car was gone. Or at least, not where it had been. Nia slowed, her chest still tight, her mind still racing. "Maybe I'm overthinking," she murmured. But even as she said it, she didn't believe it. By the time she reached her building, the sky had darkened again. Not quite night, but close enough. She climbed the stairs quickly this time, her hand brushing along the railing, her breath still uneven. Inside, Marcus was sitting on the couch, flipping through channels. "You're back," he said. Nia nodded, setting the bag down on the table. "Where's Mom?" "Sleeping." Nia exhaled. "Good." She moved toward the small window, pulling the curtain aside just slightly. The street below looked the same as always. A couple arguing near the corner. A kid riding a bike too fast. A man pushing a cart full of cans. Nothing unusual. Still, she let the curtain fall back into place. Marcus noticed. "You okay?" he asked. Nia turned. For a second, she almost said yes, almost smiled, almost pretended. But something inside her refused. "I think someone was following me," she said quietly. Marcus sat up straight. "What?" "I don't know for sure," she added quickly. "It could be nothing. Just a feeling." Marcus frowned. "That's not nothing." She nodded slowly. "I know." Silence filled the room for a moment. Then Marcus glanced toward the kitchen. "The watch," he said. Nia followed his gaze. It sat where she had left it. Still. Silent. Waiting. "You think it's connected?" he asked. Nia didn't answer right away. She walked over and picked it up, turning it in her hands. Cold. Heavy. Like before. But now, it felt different. Like it wasn't just something valuable. It was something important. Something someone might be looking for. "I don't know," she said finally, "but I don't like the timing." Marcus stood up. "What are you going to do?" Nia stared at the watch, then toward the door, then back again. "I need to get rid of it," she said. Marcus blinked. "You mean sell it?" "No." Her voice was firm now. "Return it." "To who, that lady at the hospital?" he asked. Nia shook her head slightly. "No. Not her." "Then who?" She hesitated, then said it. "Him." Marcus frowned. "He's still unconscious." "He won't be forever," Nia replied. Marcus studied her. "You really think he's going to remember you?" Nia looked down at the watch again. "I don't know," she said softly. Then she lifted her gaze. "But I remember him." Later that night, the apartment grew quiet again. Marcus fell asleep on the couch. The TV played low in the background, flickering light across the walls. Nia sat at the table, alone. The watch lay in front of her once more. She traced its edge with her finger. Tick, tick, tick. Time didn't stop, even when everything else felt like it might. Her mind drifted back, to the alley, to the rain, to the way his hand had felt in hers. Cold, fragile, human. Not a billionaire, not a name, just a person. "Please wake up, sir." She whispered the words again, barely audible. Then she leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. "What if this is bigger than I think?" she murmured, because it already felt that way. The hospital, the questions, the footage, the car, the feeling of being watched, none of it was normal. None of it was random. And now she was part of it, whether she wanted to be or not. Nia reached out and picked up the watch one last time. Tomorrow, she'd go back, find a way to see him, give it back. End this. That was the plan. Simple, clean, final. But as she sat there in the dim light, listening to the quiet tick of something that didn't belong to her, A single thought refused to leave her mind. What if giving it back didn't end anything? What if it only made things begin? Morning came with a thin layer of sunlight pushing through the cracked blinds, painting soft stripes across the walls of the apartment. The city felt quieter for a moment, like it was holding its breath before the noise returned. Naya was already awake. She hadn't slept much. The watch sat in her hand again, its smooth surface reflecting the faint morning light. It felt colder than before. Or maybe that was just her. Today. She wasn't going to wait anymore. She stood, moving quietly so she wouldn't wake Marcus or her mother. She slipped on her jacket, tucked the watch safely into her pocket, and stepped out into the hallway. The air outside was crisp, sharper than the night before. The streets were damp but no longer soaked, the rain replaced by a gray sky that threatened more. Nia walked with purpose, not fast, not slow, just steady. Like if she stopped, she might lose the courage she had built overnight. The bus ride felt longer than usual. Every stop seemed delayed. Every second stretched thin. Her fingers brushed her pocket again. Still there. Still real. She stared out the window as the city shifted around her. Blocks of worn-down buildings slowly giving way to cleaner streets, wider sidewalks, taller structures. Different world. Same city. By the time she stepped off the bus, the hospital rose in front of her again. Tall, glass-covered, untouched by the struggles that lived just a few miles away. Nia paused at the entrance. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass. Same worn jacket. Same tired eyes. Same girl no one noticed. She took a breath, then walked inside. This time, the receptionist looked at her differently. Not with curiosity, with recognition. "You again?" the woman said, her tone flat. Nia nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I need to see him." The receptionist hesitated. "Family only." "I'm not here for long," Nia said quickly. "I just need to return something." That made the woman pause. Return what? Nia reached into her pocket slowly. The watch caught the light as she placed it gently on the counter. The receptionist's eyes widened. I found it," Nia said. "In the alley. I think it belongs to him." The woman stared at the watch, then back at Nia. "Wait here." Again. But this time, it didn't feel like judgment. It felt like something shifting. Minutes later, the same man in the dark suit approached, but his expression had changed. Less guarded, more curious. "Where did you get that?" he asked quietly. "I told you," Nia said. "I found it. I came back to return it." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Come with me." The hallway felt familiar now, but different. The tension wasn't the same. This time, it felt like something was about to happen. They stopped outside the same room. The man turned to her. "He's awake," he said. Nia froze. "What?" "He woke up early this morning." Her heart skipped. Alive. Not just alive. Awake. "Does he remember anything?" she asked. The man gave a small nod. "Some things." He opened the door, and Nia stepped inside. The room felt quieter than before. Softer. The machines still hummed, but the urgency was gone. And in the bed, Daniel Whitmore was sitting up slightly, supported by pillows. His face was still pale, still marked by bruises. But his eyes, they were open, clear, watching. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Nia stood near the door, unsure, out of place again, like she didn't belong in a room like this. like she had crossed into something she wasn't meant to enter. Daniel's gaze settled on her, focused, steady, like he had been waiting. "That's her," he said. The words were quiet, but they landed like something solid, real. Clara stood near the window again, her posture unchanged, but her eyes shifted toward Naya, sharper now. "You're sure?" Clara asked. Daniel didn't look away from Nia. "I remember her voice," he said. "She stayed with me." Silence filled the room. Different from before. Not tense, not cold. Something else, recognition. Nia stepped forward slowly. I brought this back," she said, her voice softer now. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the watch. The room seemed to pause as she held it out. Daniel's eyes dropped to it, then back to her. "You could have kept it," he said. Nia shook her head. "It's not mine." Daniel studied her. Not like Clara had. Not like the others. Not looking for flaws. Looking for truth. "Most people wouldn't come back," he said. Nia gave a small shrug. "Most people don't find someone in an alley either." A faint smile touched his lips, the first sign of something human beyond the pain. "You saved my life," he said. Nia shook her head again. "I just called for help." "You stayed," Daniel replied. That mattered more. Clara watched the exchange carefully. Her expression didn't soften, but it shifted. Just slightly. "Sit," Daniel said, gesturing toward the chair beside the bed. Nia hesitated, then slowly sat down. The room felt smaller now, more personal, more real. Daniel leaned back slightly, studying her. "What's your name?" he asked. "Nia," she said. "Nia Brooks." He nodded. "Nia." He said it like he was committing it to memory, like it mattered. And for the first time, it felt like it did. Outside the window, the city moved on as it always did. But inside that room, two worlds that were never meant to cross had just collided, and neither of them knew yet what that would change. The room held a quiet kind of gravity now, not the cold, distant silence from before, not the sharp tension of suspicion. This was something else, something softer, but heavier in its own way. Daniel didn't look away from Nia, and Naya, for the first time since she walked into that hospital, didn't feel like disappearing. Clara shifted slightly near the window, her heels making a soft sound against the polished floor. "I'll give you both a moment," she said, her voice controlled as always. But before she stepped out, her eyes lingered on Nia. Not cold, not warm, something in between. Then she left. The door closed quietly behind her. Now it was just the two of them, and the steady rhythm of the machines. Daniel leaned back against the pillows, studying her more openly now. "You don't seem like someone who scares easily," he said. Nia gave a small shrug. "I just don't always have the option to be scared." That made him pause. He nodded slowly, like he understood more than he let on. "Fair enough," he said. Silence followed for a moment. Then Daniel's gaze dropped to the watch still resting on the small table between them. "You really brought it back," he said. Nia glanced at it. "I told you," she replied. "It's not mine." Daniel exhaled softly. "You know what that watch is worth?" Nia shook her head. "No, sir." "More than most people in this city make in a year," he said. She blinked once, but her expression didn't change. "Then you should probably keep a better eye on it," she said. A quiet laugh escaped him. Not loud, but real. And for a moment, He didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like a man who had almost lost everything. "You had every reason to take it," he said. Nia's fingers tightened slightly in her lap. "Maybe," she admitted. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "But you didn't." "No." "Why?" The question wasn't casual. It wasn't curiosity. It was something deeper. Something that mattered. Nia looked at him. Really looked this time. At the bruises. At the tiredness in his eyes. At the way he held himself like someone used to control, now forced to sit still. Then she answered. "Because you were a person," she said quietly. Daniel didn't move. Not an opportunity. The words settled into the room like something permanent. Something that couldn't be taken back. For a moment, Daniel just stared at her. Not blinking. Not speaking. Then something shifted behind his eyes. Not surprise. Recognition. Like he had been surrounded by noise his entire life, and had finally heard something true. "No one said that to me in a long time," he said softly. Nia looked away for a second. "I wasn't trying to say anything," she replied. "I just did what I would want someone to do for me." Daniel nodded slowly. "And they would?" She hesitated, then gave a small, honest answer. "I don't know." That hit harder than anything else. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Full of everything neither of them said. After a moment, Daniel leaned forward slightly, wincing just a bit. "You know," he said, "you may have done more than just help me." Nia frowned. "What do you mean?" Daniel's expression grew more serious. "They think this wasn't an accident," he said. Her heart skipped. "I heard that," she replied. "Someone told me." He nodded. "I've had a few disagreements lately," he said carefully. "Business. Deals that didn't go the way certain people wanted." Nia listened, didn't interrupt. "If someone wanted to send a message," he continued, "this would be one way to do it." The room felt colder again. "And I walked into it?" she asked quietly. Daniel met her eyes. "You walked into the aftermath," he said, "which might be just as dangerous." Nia's grip tightened. "I saw a car yesterday," she said, "near my place and again this morning." Daniel's expression sharpened. "What kind of car?" "Black," she said. "I didn't see much else." He leaned back slowly, thinking. "They could be watching," he said. The words landed heavy. Nia looked down at her hands. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "I know," Daniel replied. Silence again. Then, "Why are you still here?" he asked. Nia blinked. "What?" "You could have walked away," he said. "After last night. After how you were treated here. After everything." He wasn't wrong. She had every reason to leave, to forget, to pretend none of this ever happened. Nia looked at the watch again, then back at him. "Because I started something," she said slowly, "and I don't like leaving things unfinished." Daniel studied her, then nodded. "I understand that." For the first time, something like respect passed between them. Not based on money, not based on status, just understanding. The door opened again. Clara stepped back in. Her eyes moved quickly between them, measuring the shift in the room. "What did I miss?" she asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. "She's staying," he said. Clara's expression tightened slightly. "For what?" she asked. Daniel's gaze didn't leave Nia. Because she might be the only person who saw something we didn't, he said. And because I trust her. The words landed like a quiet explosion. Clara looked at him, then at Nia, then back again. You trust her? Clara repeated. Yes. Clara exhaled slowly. That's a risk. Daniel gave a faint smile. So was staying alive last night. That ended the argument. Clara didn't respond immediately. But something had changed. The girl she had dismissed hours ago was now someone her brother was choosing. And that meant something, whether she liked it or not. Nia sat there, caught in the middle of it all. She hadn't planned this, hadn't asked for it. But now there was no stepping back. Because what started in a dark alley had turned into something real, something dangerous, something that connected two lives that should have never crossed. And now, for better or worse, they were part of the same story. The city outside the hospital windows glowed under a soft afternoon light, the glass towers reflecting a world that seemed distant from everything Nia had ever known. Inside the room, time felt slower, heavier, like every second carried more weight than it should. Clara stood still for a long moment after Daniel's words. You trust her. It wasn't disbelief. It was calculation. Clara had built her life on certainty, on control, on knowing exactly where every piece fit and what every person wanted. But Nia didn't fit, and that made her dangerous in a way Clara couldn't easily define. Finally, Clara exhaled and walked closer, her heels clicking softly against the floor. If she stays, Clara said carefully, then she stays under our terms. Nia straightened slightly in her chair. I don't need anything, she said. Clara's eyes moved to her again. That's not how this works, she replied. Daniel raised a hand slightly. It is if I say it is. The room went quiet again. Clara studied her brother, then slowly nodded. Fine, she said. But this doesn't change what's out there. Her gaze shifted toward the window, toward the city. Whoever did this isn't finished. Nia felt the words settle deep in her chest. She already knew that. She had felt it. The car, the eyes, the quiet sense of being watched. Daniel leaned back slightly, his energy beginning to fade, but his focus remained steady. We'll handle that, he said. Then his attention returned to Nia. But right now, he added, we need to talk about you. Nia blinked. Me? Daniel nodded. You lost your job, he said. It wasn't a question. Nia hesitated, then gave a small nod. How do you know that? He gave a faint smile. I have people who pay attention. Clara didn't comment, but her expression said enough. Nothing about Nia's life had been hidden, not since she stepped into that hospital. Nia shifted slightly in her seat. It's not a big deal, she said. I'll find something else. Daniel watched her closely. You say that like it's easy. It's not, she admitted, but it's what I do. Daniel leaned forward just slightly, ignoring the discomfort. Why? Nia frowned. Why what? Why keep doing it? He asked, helping people, choosing the harder path, even when it costs you everything. The question hung in the air. Nia looked down at her hands. For a moment, she didn't answer. Because the truth wasn't simple. Because the truth wasn't something people usually asked about. I don't know, she said finally. Maybe because if I stop, then everything people said about me becomes true. Daniel tilted his head slightly. What do you mean? Nia looked up. People already think I'm nothing, she said quietly, that I don't matter, that I'm just someone who gets by or takes what she can. Her voice didn't break, but it came close. So if I start doing that, if I take things that aren't mine, if I stop caring, she continued, then I'm proving them right. Silence followed. Deep. Honest. Daniel didn't interrupt. He just listened. And when she finished, something changed. Not in the room. In him. You didn't prove them right, he said. Nia looked at him. You proved them wrong. The words were simple, but they carried weight. More than anything Clara had said. More than anything anyone had said in a long time. Nia didn't respond. She didn't know how. Daniel leaned back again, slower this time, letting the moment settle. People like me, he said after a while. We're surrounded by people who see opportunity everywhere. Nia stayed quiet. They see money, he continued. Power. Advantage. They don't see people. His eyes met hers again. But you did. Nia looked away slightly. I just saw someone who needed help. That's exactly the point, Daniel replied. The room felt warmer now. Not physically, emotionally. For the first time since she stepped into this world, Nia didn't feel like she was standing outside it. She felt seen. Clara watched everything carefully, every word, every glance, and slowly, her expression softened. Not completely, but enough. What happens now? Nia asked quietly. Daniel didn't hesitate. Now, he said, we make sure you don't go back to the life that punishes you for doing the right thing. Nia frowned slightly. I don't need charity, she said. Clara's eyebrow lifted. Daniel smiled faintly. I wasn't offering charity. Nia waited. Daniel shifted slightly, reaching for a folder on the table beside him. He handed it to her. What is this? She asked. An opportunity, he said. Nia opened it slowly. Inside, papers, information, programs, a foundation. His foundation. We run a community initiative, Daniel explained. Education, job training, real pathways for people who don't usually get one. Nia's eyes moved across the page. This is for me? She asked. It's for people like you, he said. People who deserve a chance, not a handout. Nia hesitated. Her fingers rested lightly on the edge of the paper. This isn't because I helped you, she asked. Daniel shook his head. No, he said, then paused. It's because of who you are. That hit differently, deeper, more real. Nia closed the folder slowly. Her heart was beating faster now, but not from fear, from something else. Hope. Careful. Uncertain. But real. I don't want to be given something, she said. Daniel nodded. Good, he replied. Then earn it. A small smile touched her lips, for the first time in a long time. Okay, she said. Clara watched her, then gave a small nod. Almost approval. Outside, the clouds began to break. Sunlight pushed through, casting a warm glow across the glass buildings of the city. Inside the room, something had shifted. Not just circumstances. Direction. Nia stood slowly, holding the folder in her hands. She looked different now. Not because of what she wore, not because of where she stood, but because of what she felt. She wasn't invisible anymore. Not here. Not now. As she turned toward the door, Daniel's voice stopped her. Naya. She looked back. Thank you, he said. Not for the watch, not for the moment, for everything. Naya nodded, then stepped out into the hallway, the same hallway as before. But it didn't feel the same. Nothing did. Because somewhere between a dark alley and a hospital room, a life had changed. Not overnight, not magically, but undeniably. And as Naya walked toward the light at the end of the corridor, for the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was moving forward, and this time, she wouldn't be invisible. When Nia Brooks chose to return that watch and say, because you were a person, not an opportunity, she didn't just save a life. She reminded someone powerful what being human really means. Sometimes the world will doubt your intentions, question your heart, and still punish you for doing the right thing. But that doesn't make your kindness any less real or any less powerful. So the next time life feels unfair, remember what Nia chose to do instead of giving up. She stayed kind, even when no one was watching. And that's something you can choose too, today, in your own small way. If this story touched you, comment one below. I'd really like to know. And tell me, would you have walked away or stayed like Nia did? There's another story coming up, one that might make you see second chances in a completely different way.